You have to strike while the iron is hot. You have to go to the sea while the weather is nice. You have to beat your father as soon as he's bald. No, not your pipe. Oh, phew, that wig is nice. Last week, I broke down a few excerpts from the book Propaganda for You. And I thought it might not be a bad idea to directly see if our dear president, Emmanuel Macron, uses the principles laid out by Edouard Bernays. To frame our discussion, I summarize these principles into 10 points. Here we go. First, simplify to the extreme. A message must be simple, clear, binary. No nuances, no complexity, no time to mess around. Everyone remembers the whatever it takes during COVID. Whatever it takes to revive the economy, the state will cover the cost. It's strange because when someone invites you saying, whatever it takes, it's on me, you're not supposed to pay them back the next year. Hey guys, the ski trip is on me. Whatever it takes, open bar. Go ahead, write it down, Brazil. 2-year loan, they'll pay a lot in interest. Anyway. Macron is a specialist in shocking phrases to replace an entire speech and avoid having to explain himself. So we're not going to go through all of them, especially since sometimes it's just recycled stuff. We are at war. We are at war. We are at war. It's the ultimate in oversimplification. Everything is reduced to a confrontation between them and us. It doesn't matter who they are. We are at war. Right now, his thing is to tell any of his listeners that they can be proud of themselves and that the situation is unprecedented. Here, he's speaking to the army. Be proud. Be proud of your country, of our armies. It's an unprecedented force in the world we live in. Now, he's speaking to the ambassadors. So be proud of what you've done. You have results. Because this value is unprecedented. Either he uses unprecedented to say that before him, no one managed to put France in such a good position. It's true. No need to justify it. Or to justify his actions, even if it means doing almost anything, in an unprecedented or potentially unprecedented situation. Like during the last cabinet meeting, when they were talking about Greenland and its potential unprecedented cascading consequences. I also said that they can be proud to be my ministers. Wait, is it already a science to be around me? Of course, for each one, this list isn't exhaustive. I'll just give a few examples. But if you want, if another example comes directly to your mind, put it in the comments, maybe with the number of the precept in front. It could be cool to remember so many good memories that our president gave us. Accuse the enemy of what you do yourself. This is called accusatory inversion. When you lie, you accuse others of lying. When you censor, you shout about censorship. Every time the subject of police violence was brought up with Emmanuel Macron during the various protests, and God knows there were many during his term. Retirement, hospitals, agriculture, labor laws, security. Still, if your appetite is good, all is well. Oh, but protests and purchasing power too. He and his government always shifted the blame, saying that the violence came from the protesters. Protesters who hated the police, but also sometimes from nasty media outlets that discredited them. And from NGOs that excuse the excesses. It's because the protesters, they're mean to me, they're violent. That's why I had to tell the police to beat them up. Among the yellow vests, people lost eyes and hands even before the first outbreak of violence. Yeah, chicken or the egg, we'll never know who started it. Damn, I really want to get him. When you see nurses tear-gassed and grandmas pushed around while troublemakers run free, you wonder if there's a desire to stir up chaos. I don't see how we could have handled this better. Another form of blame shifting, Macron is always the first to condemn crackdowns on protesters in other countries. Well, it's just that other leaders don't have this happening in their own countries too. They don't have the toothless yellow vests, the anti-pass protesters that I really want to piss off, the racist farmers. No, they don't have that. They have fighters for freedom and for improving their lives, right? And that should be allowed. Play on emotion, not reason. Fear, anger, and outrage are more effective than facts. A good propagandist doesn't try to convince, but to make people feel. Well, since his campaign and his speech at the Louvre when he won in 2017, where there wasn't a trace of a program but only a call to dreams, trust, and the future, that's all he's done. With a bit of excitement and unity, because it's our project. The most striking thing is probably the "we are at war with a virus." He played on collective fear to encourage people to go along with it. Well, maybe that's a bit of a simple example. And at least there, I won. Unlike terrorism in Russia, where he still doesn't know what to do. Oh, and those damn bedbugs too. During the Yellow Vest crisis, he and his government constantly emphasized security and order. That way, they didn't have to do detailed economic analyses. We wanted dialogue and answers, not to get beaten up. I remember at the beginning, we even raised our hands. But it quickly became complicated. Through this, he created a sense of fear about violence, and therefore about the protesters. It was easier than explaining the tax reform. Repeat, repeat, repeat. A lie repeated 1,000 times becomes the truth in the minds of the masses. We all remember his founding mantra, en même temps. To make us believe that he is as much on the left as on the right, that he is above ideologies, and especially to allow him not to have to make a decision. But he also,
there is no alternative,
to dismiss any opposition as unrealistic. These are necessary and courageous reforms to collectively make us feel guilty. Well, yes, if we don't agree, it means we lack courage. Modernize France, the startup nation, have a sense of responsibility, protect the French people. Create a common threat. An imaginary enemy is a powerful tool to mobilize and divert attention from the real problems. Once again, we immediately think of his "we are at war" statement. But he also often made crude generalizations to bring together a monolithic block, an irrational caricature. Those who are nothing, who dare to speak up. The Gauls who resist change. It's not my reform that's the problem, it's their behavior. The hateful crowd of the yellow vests. Personally, I think that doesn't make their protest very legitimate. The vile beast, the extremists, the ones our side, the side of reason, must stay united against. The anti-vaxxers, all lumped together. From conspiracy theorists to political opponents, including those who are just hesitant. Idiot. I want to piss them all off, because the threat exists indirectly, like for example with Russia. And there, you can be sure that he's doing everything to make it direct. Priority. Responsible for everything that goes wrong. Appointing scapegoats. Crises need someone to blame. Minorities, opponents, intellectuals. Pointing them out, making them the designated enemies, allows the people to unite behind an authoritarian power. Macron has messed up our country from day one. Yeah, but we quickly saw that it was the fault of those troublemakers. First, the yellow vests, the unions. And then, it was COVID's fault. Yeah, even before the first patient, we were already starting to feel its impact on the hospital. The war in Ukraine was a perfect scapegoat. Instant rise in the prices of perishable goods, even when there's no connection. Everyone who makes fun of him online is pro-Russian. And the price of our electricity, even though it's produced in France as we all know, was said to be 100% the fault of the European Union and our Bruno Le Maire, who bowed down to them. The European single market for electricity doesn't work. It's absurd. Starting Monday, at the meeting of finance ministers, I'm going to raise the issue. We need to completely overhaul the way this single electricity market works.
and a few moments later, oh no.
Pee on me. Destabilize public opinion. Keep everyone doubting everything. Mix truth with lies. If no one knows where the truth is anymore, it becomes fertile ground for propaganda. Oh, I know. Brigitte, is that a man or a woman? Why doesn't she just prove it once and for all by putting her balls on the table, huh? Instead of sowing doubt with her size 45 shoes and her manly walk. I'm not sure about that example. Wait, I've got another one. Macron, gay or not? Pff. He was having an extramarital relationship with Mathieu Gallet in 2017 before starting his campaign. All of Paris knows about it, and you can see it. He gropes every man who walks past him, especially the young ones, right? No, he'll be a heterogerontophile. Still not sure about the example. Well, I'm just trying to help, that's all. The COVID crisis is a better example. The mask was useless, then it became mandatory. PCR tests reserved for critical cases, useless for the general population. Then everyone was forced to do it. You weren't supposed to sit in bars and restaurants. No, it was too dangerous. And then 6 months later, you had to drink your coffee. That's my favorite coffee. Oh yeah, you had to. Otherwise you were sick. Schools won't close. There won't be any health passes. The lockdown will never be extended. And then the exact opposite happened. Relying on so-called common sense. Belittling expertise and glorifying gut feelings. An effective leader must flatter ignorance and make knowledge and expertise seem like arrogance.
Let's make sure there aren't too many of us at the table. Let's strictly follow all the safety measures.
It's common sense and a matter of responsibility, but each of us holds part of the solution in our own hands. Macron, during COVID, clearly told us that he would half listen to the scientists, but make the decision himself. Smarter than the others, that gentleman, if you please. Common sense was the one dictated by the members of the government and the doctors invited on the shows. The wrong kind of common sense, on the other hand, was the one given by the doctors who weren't invited and the specialists who didn't agree with the government. No need to repeat all that's been said. Science could well have as its epitaph, "We are at war. Science was the first to fall." Yesterday, she was coughing a little, just like that. And then today, snap, nothing at all. A real simplification of reality to mobilize people en masse without scientific debate. Common sense is ours. Forward, forward march, let's go. Then in reverse when we go back on our decisions but always in the same direction. Then forward again, then in reverse, moonwalking just for fun. Ha! Redirect the tension. When a scandal breaks out, create a louder diversion. Public opinion will quickly forget what seemed so crucial just a few days earlier. Well, here, I'll only give him half a point, our Macron, because that's what he's trying to do. Control information and his political agenda. But, well, reality always catches up with him. When there are protests in Paris, I quickly head abroad. A little PR, a photo, all that stuff. But well, there comes a time when you have to come back. He and his government constantly use different events to try to quietly pass laws and avoid certain scandals. But actually it doesn't work, and nowadays it even comes across more as incompetence. We just don't forget anymore. Anyway, when it comes to laws, whatever we do, it doesn't matter. At worst, in the end, they can always use 49.3. We can shout all we want, but oh well. But the scandals, those we can throw in their faces non-stop. Their attempt to redirect attention is pointless. Their lack of response or their late response, completely missing the point, it sticks in your throat. Never admitting they're wrong, even when it's obvious, they persist. A leader never makes mistakes. Admitting an error is showing a weakness. Here, I did the exact opposite. I tried to remember a time when Macron admitted he was wrong. Well, it wasn't easy. I couldn't find anything. Oh wait, during the yellow vests, remember. At one point, I was there, like this, and I admitted that maybe some of our decisions might have been misunderstood. But really, it was mostly their fault that they didn't understand anything at all. For the pension reform, for example, he only admitted to mistakes in the method and communication. But still, the reform is necessary and courageous. Basically, it's always the same old talk. That's a solid 9.5 out of 10 for Macron on this propaganda scale. But if you watched the previous video, or if you've read propaganda, you'll tell me. But anyway, according to Bernays, we can't do without propaganda. And that's even more true in politics. It's one of the pillars of our democracy. Yes, so all the presidents in the world use propaganda. It's not unique to our dear president. Except that in this case, the principles I gave you aren't those of Edouard Bernays. No, it's more of a selection drawn from the work of Joseph Goebbels. Yeah, the Minister of Propaganda of the Third Reich. Yes. But like the propagandists, in our case, it would be more like the consulting firms like McKinsey. They're the ones we could compare to Joseph Goebbels, not Macron. No. Macron, in our case, would be more like Hitler. No, nothing to do with Hitler, not even fascism. Or maybe it would be more like, Macron, a form of progressive fascism. It's the complete opposite. To put it simply, not evil opposed to good. No. It's evil on the other side of the hill from good. So you don't tell me, yeah, but you're the one who picked the principles, that's too easy. Well, actually, no. I selected the principles from a thread on Twitter that was pretty well done, and I'll put the link in the description, along with the sources that were used to make this thread. By the way, do we say thread? I think I've never actually said the word out loud. Twitter and internet sources aren't real like TV. Too bad. Those were the good old days when we managed to censor everything during COVID and the start of the Ukraine war. Damn, the world is changing. That's not good. I could have chosen clearer propaganda signs, like symbols such as the Louvre pyramid in his victory speech. I wanted to use the swastika as a symbol, but McKinsey said no. Déjà vu, being the sole figurehead of a party bearing his initials. The control over the media. At first, yes, we did everything we could to get him elected. We hid anything that could harm him, made his opponents invisible. But today, that's not really true anymore. No, oh no, we can feel the tide turning, we're not stupid. We're whoring ourselves out. There you go. If that can help spot propaganda in its most harmful form. For example, for the next Macron. Yeah, but the problem is, when we see all this, it's already too late. The kamikaze is already at the controls of the plane. Yes, but there are already signs during the campaign. First, an empty speech appealing to emotion is spread by all the media. As soon as the invisible government, according to Bernays, has chosen its protégé to put forward through propagandists, we'll see it. Will Gabriel Attal, for example, be a new Macron for France? See you soon. We can discuss it again. I found it interesting to put a book's ideas into practice right away. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks to everyone who watched until the end, liked, shared, or commented. See you soon.